How will history record the life and times of Dr. Manmohan Singh? To talk about his experiences with the man, we're joined now by TKA Nair, former Principal Secretary to Dr. Manmohan Singh, somebody who worked in the Prime Minister's office as his Principal Secretary for 7 years and was advisor to PM Manmohan Singh till 2014. Mr. Nair, thank you for taking our time. You know, you're amongst those individuals who saw Prime Minister Manmohan Singh at the closest quarters. You know, everybody else had a ringside, outside view. You saw him from within the ring. When you look back at those times, what is it about Dr. Manmohan Singh that strikes you as being most remarkable?
Well, you know, in our large country of huge diversity in many ways, in terms of religion, in terms of caste, in terms of languages, in terms of state of development, he, through his various reforms, policy initiatives, particularly in the socio-economic fields, actually opened up a new chapter. And when it comes to relations with the rest of the world, it was indeed a new opening. Those were exciting times to work with him, to work under his leadership, and also to learn so much every day from the way he handled people, he managed situations and came on top in spite of occasional hiccups or occasional apparent difficulties. So it was a period of great excitement for those of us who worked with him in his office. I remember, really those exciting times and the many occasions when when the country faced difficulties, how Dr. Manmohan Singh, through his very inimitable style, which is marked by humility, which is marked by understanding of other people and their concerns. So it was an exciting time, and in retrospect, I believe that it was indeed, in many ways, a golden period for the country.
What do you make of the kind of outpouring of support, of grief that we've seen over the past 24 hours after Dr. Manmohan Singh's passing in his last years? He faced a lot of pushback and criticism for all the alleged scams that happened on his watch as Prime Minister. However, cutting across the political line from the Prime Minister at present, the Home Minister, different leaders across different parties have really come out with a very genuine appreciation of his efforts at nation building. How do you reconcile the kind of criticism he saw in his final years in office with the kind of outpouring of support that we're seeing now?
Well, the outpouring of support from all quarters, from all sections of people, irrespective of the kind of politics they practice, in spite of the ideology they believe, is the most is the most significant, most telling example of how acceptable his policies were and how admired he is, although he was the subject of ruthless criticism at many times. So those critics, I'm sure, they would have realized that he did whatever was possible within the limitations, within many limitations, what was the best for the country, for its economic well-being, for all-round development, whether it is in the field of education, healthcare, the number of extremely important legislative measures which were brought into being during his time, they speak for themselves. Many of those policies and programs which the then Prime Minister, the late Prime Minister, started, initiated, they are continued with greater vigor, and I'm sure in the days to come they will be only accelerated. There will be no going back, which is the greatest tribute that can be paid to Dr. Manmohan Singh, the late Dr. Manmohan Singh.
You know, as an outsider observing the functioning of the Prime Minister's office, it intrigues me how and why he chose to stake the future of his government on something like the US nuclear deal, whereas on so many other issues, he didn't push back hard enough, or where even if he had a disagreement with what one of his ministerial colleagues was doing, he wasn't using the veto that he could have implemented had he chosen to. So how do you look at this? Picking something like the US nuclear deal, staking the future of his government on it, versus so many other things which he just looked the other way even when he knew that something was amiss and something shouldn't be the way it was actually panning out.
Well, what he was saying does reflect or did reflect his own priorities and his own belief, his own convictions. He realized, he was quite convinced that the nuclear deal with the United States was in the interest of our country, for the future progress of the country, in which energy shortage was standing in the way of progress. Energy is the very essence of development in the modern times, and without adequate supply of energy through clean sources, the progress of the country would be hampered. And because of that firm conviction of his, he staked everything for the success of the Indo-US nuclear deal. Yes, he lost the support of one of the partners of the government. The left, pulled out of the coalition, but that was perhaps the price he had to pay for his staunch belief and for his advocacy of the Indo-nuclear deal. That is a telling example, really, that he was not, in spite of his mild manners and his soft exterior, he was a man of firm convictions, a man who stood by what he thought was right for the country.
In the pantheon of Indian prime ministers, there's the likes of Jawaharlal Nehru, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. How do you think history will rank and judge Dr. Singh?
Well, it's not fair to compare prime ministers. Each of them has had his, plus point. No human being is perfect. All of them have had their own share of, not blame, their own share of shortcomings. And but in spite of that, I would hazard a guess that history will rate Dr. Manmohan Singh as one of the very best of prime ministers in building up the modern India. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru laid the foundations of modern India, but on those strong foundations, Dr. Manmohan Singh built an edifice of progress, an edifice of all-round prosperity, and also, the way forward for the future in many ways.
TKA Nair for joining us.
Policy of economic liberalization.
From Thiruvananthapuram, and sharing your thoughts on the Manmohan Singh that you knew and you worked with so closely. Thank you very much. Deeply appreciate you taking out time. Thank you, sir.